바야흐로 위기의 시대입니다. 하루가 멀다 하고 지구촌 곳곳에서 위기가 생겨나고 있습니다. 지구 반대편의 위기는 다음날 우리의 눈앞에서 현실이 됩니다. 하지만 위기는 곧 새로운 기회이자 도전을 의미합니다. 세계적인 경제 위기와 함께 자본주의가 기로에 섰습니다. 독일의 지성 파울롤테 교수와 함께 위기에 처한 자본주의의 미래와 건설적인 대안, 그리고 한국 사회에 주는 시사점을 모색해보고자 합니다. 먼저 최근 세계적인 화두로 질문을 시작하겠습니다. 미국발 금융위기에 이은 유럽발 재정위기로 기존 자본주의 체제가 심각한 도전을 받고 있습니다. 그동안의 자본주의 역사가 말해주듯이 새로운 자본주의를 위한 발전의 성장통이라는 분석도 나오고 있습니다. 이딴 글로벌 경제위기가 기존 자본주의 체제에 던지는 메시지는 무엇이라고 생각하십니까?
Yeah, it's very difficult actually to learn from the history of capitalism and its crisis. What we can learn most importantly from the history of capitalism is that it is always a history shaped by crisis. Capitalism goes on in a stage of growth and development and innovation for some time, and then a crisis happens, but you never know when it will happen because it's not really a regular cycle, and you never know what the crisis will be like. All of the crises that we've seen in the history of previous capitalism, like the crisis of the late 1920s and 1930s, the Great Depression, and today's crisis, all of those crises are different, and you can't really draw lessons for them. But you have to be careful politically and try to deal with the effects of the crisis. The most important lesson, I think, of the previous crisis that we've had for learning for today is that a crisis has never meant the end of capitalism and market societies, and capitalism has so far always come out of the crisis stronger even than it was before, and perhaps this will also be the case with the recent crisis.
글로벌 경제 위기와 함께 세계 경제 역학 구도가 G10 중심으로 빠르게 이동하고 있습니다. G20가 G2, G7을 대체하는 새로운 세계 질서, 경제 질서를 위한 대안으로서 역할을 잘 수행할 수 있을 것으로 보십니까?
Oh, absolutely. I think G7 is, not perhaps dead, but it has lost enormously in significance during the crisis. Yes, 3 or 4 years ago, hardly anyone would know what G20 even is, and now it is a central institution of steering the world, of steering global markets and the future of the world in economic terms and beyond, also politically. I'm sure that G20 will be the instrument of steering the world through the crisis, and it is, I think, important that the G20 assume this role, and also that the smaller countries, the countries that have not been members of G7, that they also act self-confidently. They are not just the little brothers of the older G7 nations anymore. They're as important as the older nations, and I think that's the future of the system.
G20의 성공적인 정착 내지는 역할을 위한 어떤 과제들이라고 할까, 이런 게 좀 생각하시는 분들이 좀 있으면 말씀 좀 해주십시오.
Well, I think the process, there is not much to do about it. It has already happened. I mean, such processes of power transmission are sometimes really swift and quickly, and it can't be disputed anymore that the center of power is with G20. Now it's only important to find instruments of collaboration and to find answers to the crisis. So it's not the question what can G20 do in order to distinguish itself from G7, but what can it do to play the role that it has to play.
이제 질문의 포커스를 한국으로 좀 바꿔보겠습니다. 한국은 성공적인 금융위기 극복을 바탕으로 올해 G20 의장국으로서 11월에 정상회의까지 개최하게 되는데요. 한국 정부의 기대대로 선진국과 개도국 사이에서 가교 역할을 훌륭히 수행해낼 수 있을 것으로 보시는지, 그리고 한국 정부가 더 노력해야 될 부분이 있다면 어떤 부분인지 말씀을 좀 해주십시오.
Yes, I hope that Korea will play a major role in this, and I think it is destined to be very important here. It is not only a bridge. Korea is not only a bridge between developed and less developed countries. Actually, it is not as much a bridge. It has become part of the developed world. Only its own memories of the pre-developed era are fresher than are in other countries, and so it may show actually other members of G20 that are larger in population, for example, but on the whole less developed, like Brazil, for example. It may show them the way to further prosperity and to further becoming a part of the international community. But I think that Korea can stand very self-confidently and together with the most developed nations of Europe and the United States.
한국은 이제 금융위기에 앞서서 97년 외환위기도 성공적으로 극복한 바 있습니다. 하지만 급속한 그 과정에서 급속한 신자유주의하고 양극화와 함께 사회 통합의 기반이 상당히 많이 약화가 됐습니다. 위기 상황 극복을 위한 한국 정부의 선택이 과연 적절했는지 좀 평가를 좀 내려주시기 바랍니다.
Yeah, I think Korea has been going a good way out of the depression. The big structural advantage of Korea is that it is still in a phase of rapid expansion and dynamics, in a situation that is comparable to the situation that my country, Germany, West Germany, was in the 1960s, perhaps. So the return to a path of growth and expansion, the return to very respectable growth rates was quite easier than it is for the more mature European economies. But on the other hand, there are social problems lurking, and it is, I think, important that South Korea starts to realize and address these problems. Probably Korea is in a stage of its development where growth rates are not everything, but where the integration of society becomes more important, where demographic problems such as birth rates and the aging of society becomes more important, and so this kind of phase of natural expansion of Korea may come to an end, and the country would have to address its social problems more aggressively.
또 한국의 문제를 다시 한번 또 거론하겠는데, 한국은 분단이란 특수함 때문에 빈부 갈등은 물론 이념 갈등이 상당히 첨예합니다. 최근엔 일자리 부족으로 세대 간 갈등도 상당히 크게 부각되고 있는데요. 교수님은 저서인 개혁세대에서 사회적 통합과 책임을 강조한 바 있습니다. 앞서 경제 발전은 물론 분단과 통일을 함께 경험한 독일의 경험을 비춰볼 때 우리나라에 한국에 줄 수 있는 조언을 좀 부탁드립니다.
Yes, first of all, I think it is important to become aware of those problems. One lesson of the European situation of the past 2 or 3 decades is that it took European countries, especially my own country, Germany, extremely long before it had realized that there were some problems in society. So my advice is keep your eyes open, first of all, and see what's happening. everything and don't push off these problems, but address them critically, even if it's sometimes difficult to say to yourself, not everything is running wonderful, but we're having problems. I think there are several strategies that the European countries are now exploring. One, of course, is with regard to the demographic situation, the attempt to do family-friendly policies and an attempt to raise the birth rate again. But this will be extremely difficult, so the experience with this is very ambivalent. The second and major strategy now is an emphasis on education and on building the human capital with fewer people that you have. You need to train them better, and I think Korea is in a good position here because, as far as I know, it has traditionally a very strong emphasis on education already, so you should pursue this educational strategy very much. That would be my advice.
그 교수님께서는 저서인 위험한 사회와 새로운 자본주의 한국어 판머릿말에서 시장경제와 민주주의에서 커다란 성공을 거둔 국가로 독일과 함께 한국을 꼽은 바 있습니다. 반면에 두 나라 모두 이제 시장경제와 민주주의에 있어서 새로운 불안정 국면으로 접어들고 있다는 평가도 동시에 내리셨는데요. 그 교수님이 지적한 그 불안정의 의미는 어떤 것인지 궁금합니다.
Yes, the instability that we're entering into in the 21st century comes from a situation in which things are less self-evident than they were before. Growth rates are not self-evident. The population is not expanding anymore in many regions of Europe and soon also in Korea and other East Asian countries, and there are external risks apparently also that damage the stability of our situation. In Europe, we've just had the effects of a natural disaster of this volcano that disrupted the economic situation, not just in the airline business very much. So what we are seeing in recent years is that there are more disruptions than we were used to, and the danger is, especially in Europe, that we take and we see these disruptions and become afraid of moving in this society. So my political advice is that we should rather tackle these problems. We have to keep moving because everything else would be even more dangerous just because we see these risks. We cannot go into a cave and avoid living amongst these risks. So there is no life beyond the risks. That is my message.
최근 한국 내에서는 민주주의가 후퇴하고 있는 게 아닌가라는 평가가 좀 많이 나오고 있습니다. 하지만 국민들은 민주주의보다는 이제 더 먹고 사는 일에 더 많은 관심을 가지고 있는 것 같은데요. 독일도 경제 발전 과정에서 비슷한 경험을 가지고 있는지 궁금하고, 또 민주주의와 경제 발전이 가지는 연관성에 비춰볼 때 이러한 현상들을 어떻게 해석해야 되는지 묻고 싶습니다.
Yeah, I think democracy in general is very closely linked to the history of market society and capitalism, and it is perhaps not surprising that now with more critical development in the economy, also the trust in democratic political institutions is sometimes shrinking. And in Europe, especially in Germany, we see this now in recent years very much, that participation in elections is declining and other membership in political parties is falling. So the trust in democratic institutions is not what it was before. And but I think we don't have an alternative beyond our trust in democracy, and it is important to see that democracy is not something that is brought to one country at some point in time, as it was kind of brought to Germany after the Second World War by the American and other Western allies, and then it is there and nothing can happen. No, it has to be relearned and retaught over and over, and it has to undergo changes. Democracy is something that is very dynamic also. It is not a fixed set of institutions, but something that has to be relearned and redeveloped. As in Germany, for example, we had to learn that democracy is not just elections, but it's also people going on the streets and demonstrating and working in citizens' initiatives, doing grassroots things in civil society. And so I think it's important everywhere in the world to watch out for new forms of democracy and to strengthen these new forms of democracy in their countries.
교수님도 지적하신 대로 한국은 지금 기로에 서 있습니다. 독일은 이미 경험했지만 경제 발전의 원동력이 떨어지면서 서서히 저성장 국면으로 이행하고 있습니다. 특히 유례를 찾아보기 어려울 정도의 저출산과 고령화가 노동력과 소비 감소, 또 복지 재원 증가를 뿐만 아니라 전반적인 사회적 활력을 떨어뜨릴 것이라는 우려가 상당히 크게 작용하고 있습니다. 혹시 교수님께서 생각하고 계시는 해법이 있으시다면 소개를 좀 부탁드립니다.
Yeah, as I said, there is no master solution, and I think this is perhaps one of the greatest dangers that people are looking for. The only one master solution, as if we could leave our current situation and current problems behind and flee into an alternative sort of system. And perhaps this danger is not as great in Korea as it is in some parts of Europe. In European countries, we're still under the impression of the historical prominence of socialism, and so many people right now in European countries, they long for a kind of a utopian form of socialism, not a return to Soviet-style socialism, of course, but to a kind of utopian socialism. And I think this is not very helpful because it does not allow us to address the difficult problems, and they are of very many kinds. So you have to do a complicated strategy, address many things at the same time. I think you shouldn't give up the search for economic growth. Probably there will come a period in Korean economic development also where growth rates, or it has already come where growth rates are falling, but it is important to work for growth. And second, it is important to strengthen education, as I've said, to train your workforce and train your young people according to the needs of the future. And third, I think it is important, and that's also a lesson of European experiences in the recent decade, to have an open society, to allow migrants, especially well-educated migrants, to come in and to benefit from experiences of other nations. The more developed a country is, and that will or is now also true for Korea, the more attractive it is to immigrants, and I think it is a benefit for a country and for a country's economy to have a strong immigrant population. We can see this with the United States, who would be economically much less important now if it were not for many immigrants, not least for immigrants from East Asia that are helping the U.S. economy.
교육에 관한 질문을 좀 드리겠습니다. 한국은 어느 나라보다도 교육열이 강합니다. 교수님께서는 리스크를 감수하고 새로운 기회에 투자하는 생산적 국가의 대안으로서 교육을 상당히 강조하고 계시는 걸로 알고 있는데요. 교수님이 말하는 교육의 중요성은 어떤 맥락이고 어떻게 교육이 이루어져야 하는지 말씀을 좀 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, I think most developed countries now, most European countries, as well as many of the East Asian countries, especially Japan and Korea, are countries without much natural resources. Only very few countries, such as Norway, have oil or other natural resources. So the resource that we have is really knowledge, and knowledge as a resource becomes ever more important as we proceed from a classical industrial economy of manufacturing to what we call a knowledge economy, a knowledge society, a society that is based on what people know, on information, on the exchange of information, and therefore it's important to educate people early on, not just in specific tasks. So in the industrial economy it was important to have specialists for a certain technique, for a certain industrial job. You educated a person who was 15 or 20 years old so that he could be a good maker of cars in a factory. But that's not enough anymore. You need to teach people in an information or knowledge society general skills. You need to teach them how to educate themselves over their whole life course. You need to make education a project that goes over the whole cycle of life, so that people, even if they are 30 or 40 or 50 years old, may be able to learn new things and to adapt to changing environments and labor markets. And that's the challenge, to find educational structures that can do that, not teach young people specific techniques, but to be versatile knowledge citizens in a way.
교수님께서는 현대 사회를 리스크 회피 사회로 규정을 하고 계시는데, 그런 측면에서 한국이 어떤 정치적으로 또 경제적으로 봤을 때 교수님이 말씀하시는 리스크를 회피하는 사회인지, 아니면 리스크를 어느 정도 수용해서 앞으로 발전점을 모색하고 있는 그런 국가인지 교수님 좀 평가를 좀 듣고.
Well, I'm not sure whether I know enough about Korea to really give a good answer to that question. I think Korea is, in my perspective, quite well prepared because it has learned to live with so many new things in recent years. In just a generation, it has made the transformation from from an older agrarian and just the beginnings of an industrial economy to an advanced industrial economy, to being one of the leaders in the world. It has seen rapid urbanization with millions of people flocking to big cities, especially to the Seoul metropolitan area. So I think people in Korea are flexible, and what would be the challenge is to teach them that probably this is not just one transformation that in a few years will be over and then it is time to lay back and relax, but that you have to face other challenges, and that you have to kind of keep going and be attentive to new risks and challenges that will face Korean society. But if parents transmit this idea to their children, and children get the idea, oh, my parents have done such a great job. They were coming from a village and now they live in totally different circumstances in a big city and doing different jobs than what they were educated for. I will have to do the same. That's the right attitude. Not that children would say, oh, my parents have all done it, and so I can kind of live off the assets that my parents have built. That would be dangerous.
비슷한 질문이 될 수 있을 것 같은데, 한국 정부는 최근 서민을 따뜻하게 중산층을 두텁게라는 슬로건 하에 미래 10년 구상을 짜고 있습니다. 저 아까 포럼에서도 곽승준 위원장님께서 연설을 하셨는데, 독일의 경험을 바탕으로 한국의 앞으로 10년, 20년을 위한 구체적인 조언이 있으시다면 한두 가지 정도만 좀 부탁을 드리겠습니다.
I think it's important, first of all, to focus on social issues and on what kind of society you have, and especially I think it is important to have a strong middle class. All industrial societies in Europe and in North America in the 20th century have developed into strong middle-class societies in which the middle class encompasses 50% or more of the population, and it has turned out that this is important for the stability, also for the overall political stability of a society. And as in some ways with the recent crisis and recession, as the economic situation may become more difficult in the future, it is important to see that the middle class will remain strong. And there's a lot of talk now in Europe and in North America also about the shrinking middle class, the dangers to the middle class. So there's a political awareness in these countries that is also, I think, to be recommended for Korea, that the middle class indeed should be kept warm and thick and strong. It has to, the middle class, I think, has to learn that it can't live from government subsidies. There are people who perhaps need government benefits, poor people in every country. The middle class basically has to stand on its own feet, but it has to have also the political support in terms of tax policies, educational policies, and others by the government.
마지막으로 개인적인 질문 하나만 좀. 한국 방문이 몇 번째시고 한국에 대한 이미지가 어떠신지, 그리고 이번 포럼에 참석하신 느낌이 좀 어떠신지 좀.
Yes, it is my first visit to Korea. Yes, I've been to other Asian countries in previous visits to Japan, for example, so I was very interested also to see Korea. And my first impression was that of a very new country, a country under rapid transformation, and a country that very much lives in this dense urban metropolis of Seoul. Asian cities are always fascinating to European visitors because I come from a city, Berlin, which is one of the largest European cities, and people there tend to think that Berlin is overcrowded and densely populated, but they have never seen an Asian city such as Seoul. And I think this forum is a great opportunity for exchange between different perspectives of the world. I've learned already a lot about Korea in this forum, and during my just 36-hour stay here, not even 36 hours in this country, and I think this exchange is important. I hope that I can bring some perspectives about European developments that are important for Korea also.
Resulted from the primacy and the severity of the crisis.